All right, so thank you everybody, and welcome to the October Best Practice webinar. I'm Crystal Hall with the Iowa After School Alliance. I also have the other Iowa After School Alliance team members on with me this morning too. So Brittany, do you want to unmute and just say good morning?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Brittany Samuelson, and I'm the network lead of the Iowa After School Alliance.
All right, and we have Emily Harris on the call too. So Emily, if you're able to unmute and say good morning, wonderful.
Yeah, hi. I'm off camera because I'm currently feeding a baby, but I'm Emily Harris with the Iowa After School Alliance. I work a lot on policy and communication.
All right, so thank you. So today our topic is going to be reviewing the Iowa After School Alliance quality standards, and we're going to talk about how you can use these to really make your program great. So you're going to be listening to a lot of commentary today, but we'll also have some time for you to do some sharing as well. So if you don't mind, and I think what we'll do is, since we've got 15 people on the call today, if you would be so kind as to open up the chat, type your name, your role in your site, and then something that you feel that you do really well at your site, and something that maybe you feel like you could use a little bit of improvement in. So I'll give you a couple of maybe a minute or so to make your introduction into the chat.
Oops.
Okay. And again, I'm seeing lots of names and titles, folks, so welcome. Thank you for that. But if you can answer the third and fourth bullets as well, something you feel that your program does really well, and then something you feel like perhaps you need to have a little bit of improvement in. That would be great.
Really well.
And I'm just kind of looking at the chat as they come in here, so. All right, so Jenny, things they do well: collaborating with families and stakeholders, something that needs improvement, finding ways for sustainability. Boy, if we had $1 for every time sustainability came up. So,
Then spell it. Relationship. I just wasn't saying that.
What are you putting?
Relationship.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Also getting just a little bit of feedback from somebody's unmuted microphone. So if you're not expressing something verbally, if you wouldn't mind just muting yourself, that would be great. Sam from Audubon says keeping kids engaged and mitigating as a school is what they do well, and they could use more space. That, again, I wish I had $1 million that I could just grant everybody right now, and that probably wouldn't even touch what you needed. But Loris, enrichment and field trip opportunities, some improvement with family literacy. Awesome. Kate's still learning about her organization, so we'll give her a pass right now. That's good. Billy says Oak Ridge does well with providing academics and social emotional programming. Maybe need a little help with working with parents, or perhaps that's a strength too. Nikki, site communication with partners, very low staff turnover. Need to improve on sustainability and more ideas for virtual family engagement. That's good to know. Tara says Makokata, they work well with community partners, working to grow an implementation for online enrichment. Absolutely. Chris adds to that, says that Makokata has great community support. Virginia says relationship with students and needs improvement in parent contacts because of COVID. Chris has also added that need to get staff more involved. So staff that are stable and dependable. That's good to know too. Oak Ridge might need enrichment activities. Beth says working well with teachers, principals, students, and need improvement in the field of parents. Okay, please feel free to keep them coming in, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward here. So our goal for the day is at the end of this webinar, we want you to know what the quality standards are and how you can connect those to your site visit for 21st century. So a little bit further into the presentation, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to get out of the light here that's illuminating me. At some point, we're going to, sliding my table. There we go. At one point in the conversation today, we'll be talking about what those standards are and how they directly align with that site visit document that is shared out with you, so that when Vic comes and does, put the presentation in the chat, okay. When Vic comes and does his work with you, you'll be able to better align why this is important. We'll also strive to have you understand how you currently implement the standards, and we also have a self-assessment tool that we'll be sharing with you. You can then understand how to use that, which will help you to understand what you are currently doing well, and again, maybe where you need some improvement and some ideas for improvement as well. How to implement changes using a team building approach with your staff, which could potentially help with some of that buy-in and staff feedback, and then additional resources that come to fruition. Okay, so Tara has asked if I shared the PowerPoint in the chat so she can take notes on it. And at this point, I only have the PowerPoint document. This is not a Google Doc or anything of that nature, but this is being recorded and all of the materials will be on the website post-call. So sorry, Tara, that's just kind of how we're gonna have to do this. So where did the Iowa Quality Standards come from? The Iowa After School Alliance develops these standards so that you can use these within your program to help establish and develop and round out your vision. So the standards are something to strive for. You don't necessarily have to have them all in place at once. And we encourage you to think about the standards as you're planning or supporting your program structure, administration, or management, and the operations. Brittany, is there anything that you want to add to this particular slide, thinking about, where these standards came from, how they were developed, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, sure, Crystal. I'll provide a little bit of background. I will say that I forgot my roommate is having a virtual job interview this morning right now, so I'm going to keep my camera off to keep the bandwidth lower for her. So a little bit about quality though. In 2006, the Iowa After School Alliance had created a quality team, a quality committee to really nail down some quality standards for out of school time programs in Iowa. So they started from an initial list of 40 standard categories and over 600 different indicators. And they got these different indicators and standards from a bunch of research they did, drawing upon sources from like the National After School Association, the National Institute on Out of School Time, After School Investments, National Association of Elementary School Principals, and then the YPQA, the Youth Program Quality Assessment, as well as many others. So that's where we started. You'll see as Crystal goes through the tool today that we do not have 40 standard categories and 600 indicators. The committee narrowed those down in 2006, and then the committee was re-engaged in 2018 again to make the list even more concise, so it's a more accessible tool for you all. So that's where we are with the quality standards and how they came to be to where they are today.
Thank you. So on your screen now, I do have the standards being shared. And Brittany, if you don't mind, if you would please drop a link to these into the chat. Since I'm in presentation mode, it's a little more difficult to navigate for myself at this moment. That would be greatly appreciated. So we'll have these. You guys can grab them. You can pull them up on your computer as we move along. So again, that document has been dropped into the chat. Feel free to grab that. And again, we'll make this available to everybody on the website afterwards along with the recording. So right out of the gate, what I would point out is that we do have categories of the quality standards, and those include positive human relationships, appropriate indoor and outdoor environments, effective programming, strong partnerships, and effective administration. And we're going to kind of go through each of these today so that you can see what they are how they look at them, and then we'll talk again how they align with the site visit document, and we'll also be looking at how they are applicable for you. Brittany also dropped into the chat that there is the link to these standards. You can also find them on the iowaafterschoolalliance.org website. And they'll be included with the materials from today too. So when we think about positive human relationships, what does that mean? So as I pull up the other document here again, what we're really looking at here are the indicators of quality. So the program promotes and maintains a positive environment. It utilizes positive conflict resolution techniques. Individualized conversations and interactions occur between adults and youth. Youth needs are identified and provided for by a diverse team of stakeholders. Appropriate ratios and purposes for that program. A safe and supportive environment. So these next few items are what we're going to discuss here. And when we think about how they connect to site monitoring, what does that mean? So let me pull that document up too, so that everybody can remind themselves. Excuse me for just a second here while I try to grab that. And I'm sorry, I have to stop sharing my screen for just a moment. What we're really talking about here, good Lord, I have so many windows up, so my apologies, is the document that came with, there we go, that came with your grant materials. So this form is what Vic will use when he comes to do your site visit, and he'll be looking through different indicators to show that there's true quality that's happening. Again, we'll make this available after the meeting, but my hope is that all of you, or at least the vast majority of you, have been able to access this document so you know what Vic will be looking for when he comes to review your grant. So specifically, let me grab this. So specifically, we are looking at items 2C, that the program has a formal process for regular and effective communication with students and teachers to provide individualized assistance in academic areas and to inform and receive information from in-school teachers on students' academic and behavioral progress, and that FERPA agreements are in place. We're also looking at 6F. Staff is aware of program goals and objectives and can explain the relationship of program activities to the goals set in the grant application. You can also add in here 1A, 5D, and then again, testimonials from staff, youth, parents, and other stakeholders. So at this moment, and I'm sorry, let me get back into presentation mode here. I guess I would like to open the floor, and you can either unmute yourself or drop into the chat. How do you feel like you are currently building positive human relationships when you look at the document that was the quality standards document? What is it that you feel like you currently do at your site? You can unmute or drop into the chat to build those positive human relationships. Oh, Christine has a comment in here that Vic is awesome when he does the site visit. Try not to stress too much beforehand, and that is true. I remember my first site visit, I was very nervous, and it was completely unwarranted. So,
Christine also had a question about how to keep in touch or keep community partners engaged during COVID, especially if you're not allowed to have outside guests in your building. And one idea that I was typing into the chat, Christine, that I've seen other programs do is they've had some of their community partners film enrichment activities or videos for you to show in your program to the kids that are in the building. So for instance, if one of your partners is 4-H extension and outreach, you could have them film a STEM activity off-site, and then you could show that and have all the supplies that you need in your program to do with the kids. Or if you're partnering with a farmer or something in your community, you could have them film a little field trip around their farm that the youth can view in your program. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can use technology and virtual capacity to bridge the gap a little bit that we're experiencing during COVID.
Absolutely. Nikki's comment is that when building positive human relationships, it's important to keep that communication open. They meet regularly with their partners, whether before a program or during. And again, absolutely true. Anytime you can increase communication, really good things can happen here. Christine also adds that, again, constant communication with her administration, teachers, and parents really helps to make those connections, and I think that's true. What about the staff to youth connection? Can anybody give me an example? Please,
I
Jenny,
was going to share. Yeah, this is Jenny Watkins from Bettendorf, and we really work hard building those relationships with the staff and students and families. And one of the things, I think someone mentioned it, was just we just haven't had any turnover. We haven't had a lot of turnover, I should say. And one of our staff members has been here for the last, 7 years. So I just really want to, and when I'm looking at what it looks like, successes are regularly celebrated. We have a VIP board, and every month we celebrate the students and highlight a student from every grade level and very specifically talk about their contributions to our program, because we want the kids to have that ownership too and to feel like it's theirs. So we do celebrate their successes. We really go by the PBIS, where we celebrate those positive behaviors that students are doing and showing, and particularly now more than ever, that connection with adults during this kind of hybrid COVID. Things have been really uncertain. Just really that relationship part, I think we do really well in our program.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other thoughts that we want to share before we move on to the next indicator? Grab this. Billy says they have lots of staff conversations, parent and student conversations, information on programming, highly visual, and that's a good point, that visual presence, right? So when you're out front, when you're present, when you're in the mix with the kids, the parents, they immediately know who they can go to if they have those questions. And that's, sometimes I think people underestimate the value of that. Also work with that school staff, principals, things like that. Christine mentions her good news cards, which I've heard of in the past. So Christine, do you want to unmute just very quickly and explain what that is to the group? Are you able to? No, okay, sorry. The good news cards, if I'm remembering correctly, and she can correct me in the chat, is there are so many, and she's showing it on her screen right now. You know, a lot of times when you get that communication from the school, it might be negative, right? So these good news cards are the communications that you get when your child or student has done something really positive and they want to call them out for it. And I think it's a great way to kind of build that connection between families and the school and the out of school time program. Yeah, so Christine clarifies it's a postcard that says something special about the child. So thank you for that. All right, we're going to move on just because of time, but the next criteria is indoor and outdoor environment. And for this one, what we're talking about, I keep losing the criteria here. So if we were to pull up, Brittany, do you have that ready? Could you please read the indicators to me so that I don't have to keep sharing and unsharing everything on the screen, or if not, I can grab it real quick here too.
Sure, I can do that. So under appropriate indoor and outdoor environments, we have indicators such as program space is suitable for the program offered, meaning it's clean, hazard-free, safe, distractions are minimized, etc. Another indicator is program space is adequately supervised during program hours. So you have check-in and check-out procedures, and it's monitored to make sure there aren't any strangers coming into the program. Another indicator is adequate developmentally appropriate materials are accessible to youth. So books out that are available and accessible for the youth and appropriate for them. And then they're in the youth's reach so they can grab them whenever they're ready. And then the final indicator in this standard is all program space is accommodating of children with special needs. So you make sure that your space is physically accessible for wheelchairs and other mobility supports. You've created activities that youth with disabilities can fully participate in. And then if there's any sensory sensitivity, they have a place where they can go in the program with minimal distractions if they need that sensory break. So those are the indicators, Crystal.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate that. I don't know what the deal with Zoom is today, but every time I pull up a document, the next time I try to pull it up, it's just gone. So how this connects to our site monitoring form is 4A, 4D, and 7A. And you'll see on here, again, I'm not going to read these verbatim. Everybody can read, but we're really talking about safe facilities, written policies and procedures. We're talking about license or approval, which I'll explain one more thing with that in just a moment. And then meals and snacks that are provided. Those are the types of things that Vic is going to be looking for. He may also ask you questions about some of the students who are requiring some special needs or accommodations. So just be aware of that. But again, it's a very friendly conversation. Now, one thing I do want to point out specifically on this one is item 4D in the site monitoring document says the facility is licensed, approved, or exempt by the state of Iowa, DHS, and meets or exceeds the equivalent of licensing requirements for documentation of staff and students. I just want to clarify with everybody that you do not have to be a DHS licensed site for you to have a 21st century program. Sometimes that gets a little bit confusing for people. I just wanted to call that to everybody's attention so that you can be aware of that. Now, if you are DHS licensed, it's just as simple as a check, but that will be, that's that. So now again, I'm curious, and I'd like to open the floor, the chat or the commentary. Some of you have said that space is an issue for you. So then how do you create that positive environment? How do you provide those safety measures or mechanisms? How do you have to get creative when it comes to your snacks or meals? What types of things are you doing to ensure that you're meeting some of those quality standards?
One thing I think that's been different, obviously because of COVID, we've had to spread our kids out. The school is mitigating by keeping cohorts separated. And since our after-school program is within the school, we have to put them at different lunch tables. So we kind of quadrant off our gym, and we just have 2 grade levels in there, first grade and kindergarten. And then we use different parts of the building to separate out other cohorts. So that's been a challenge this year. But one thing we have done in the past, and once maybe we get past COVID, we can get back to this to promote getting out, is we do a community wellness walk, and we promote that businesses could release people to come walk and be with students, and we have a sign in just so we can kind of see how many show up, and then we play music at the track, and it's just a community wellness walk. But when you go back to what we were talking about before as far as communication and building relationships, that's been a very positive one for us that gets us outside and gets community involved and helps parent engagement as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate your insight on that. So, anybody else want to jump in here? Christine has some comments about one staff handing out snacks and wearing masks during the program. No parents allowed in the building. So I'm going to pick up on that for a moment. I would make an assumption that most of you are also following that general recommendation about parents not being in the building. Are you doing anything then to make your general atmosphere more inviting or participatory? I know there's one site in Cedar Rapids where one staff kind of escorts the children kind of out to the carpool area, so to speak, just to make that kind of friendly gesture. It's kind of it's just a unique situation that we've been in, because I think previously you guys all probably had an opportunity to interact with those families on some level in some way, shape, or form daily, but maybe we're not seeing that anymore. So it's kind of disheartening, but as with all things, we'll get through this, right? So any other comments on appropriate indoor or outdoor environment? Christine says she has assigned staff at the front door that meet and greet the parents and then walks the kids out. Yeah, so that's good. Any other comments, folks? All right, we're going to move on to the next indicator, which is our effective programming, and Brittany's going to read the standard language again.
Great. So the first indicator here is choice, creativity, independence, and responsibility are practiced. So this looks like having a process to collect input from youth and parents regarding programming or clubs. It means having activities that provide opportunities for youth to explore different concepts on their own and use that critical thinking. And then the staff just serve as facilitators for those activities. The next indicator is opportunities for growth and development, learning and reflection, and exploring interests exists. So all of your activities should have clear learning goals for this indicator, and then all of those activities should have an opportunity for youth to reflect on what they learned in the activity. The next indicator is intentional planning and consistent execution of program activities occurs while allowing for flexibility as needed. So you have time to develop these high quality activities for staff at least once a week. You have a calendar of activities, and then there's always a plan B in case something happens and you can't do the activity as planned. Next indicator is nutritional snacks and meals are offered. So at a minimum, USDA guidelines are followed to make sure those snacks and meals are nutritional. And then the last indicator here under this standard is youth contributions and accomplishments are recognized and showcased. So you either have a youth performance or showcase at least once a year. You are able to communicate those youth accomplishments either internally or externally or both within your school community. And then programs have goals for youth, and then those youth are recognized when they achieve those goals, whether it's attendance or project completion or whatever that makes sense in your program.
Absolutely. Thank you. So again, when we think about how that's connected to our site visit monitoring form, 2B and 3A immediately stand out. 3A, I feel like is, it's something that you all really excel at, because obviously you're hitting those academic needs, but again, that broad array of additional services, programs, and activities. So it's everything from your enrichment activities, your physical fitness activities, your social emotional learning activities, all of those that are happening are what helps to build that effective programming. And then also items 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E. And again, we're not going to go into each and every one of those. So we all know that data, that hard data, the progress and proficiency scores and grades and attendance and office referrals, that's our absolute indicator of effective programming. But what other ways can you demonstrate, or do you show that your site is having that positive impact on kids? And I think, right out of the gate, we would say our local evaluation document, those anecdotal success stories and things like that, obviously. But what are some other ways that you guys could share your story or tell about the effectiveness of your program through youth outcomes? Anybody wants to unmute, or again, drop it into the chat, that would be great. Christine says teacher surveys, parent surveys, student surveys, absolutely. So yes, those are nice data pieces that you can grab from. can show some of that connection. It can show even just basic, you know, I like this program, I don't like this program. My children are being cared for here or they're not. Anybody else have a comment that you'd like to add to the chat or unmute and share? Student advisory meetings, Beth? Yes, absolutely. Beth, are you able to unmute and maybe just elaborate on that a little bit? If not, that's fine. But I guess I'm curious if you would like to share. Yeah, thank you.
Virginia has meetings with the students once a month and just ask them what kind of things turn your volume down, what kind of things that they're interested in and what kinds of things they'd like to see as far as activities and what they like, don't like, those kind of things. And it's just kind of a impromptu meeting with the kids to ask them their preferences.
And when we used to have field trips.
Oh, and when we had field trips, she would find out what kind of field trips they wanted to take and that kind of stuff.
But we don't know.
Of course, we can't do field trips right now, so.
And who's on your student advisory meeting? Is it everybody or is it like a nominated group of kids? How does that work for you at your site?
Anybody, everybody that's there.
Anybody that's there that night. I'm going to let Virginia unmute and talk about it a little bit more since she does it.
Okay, thank you. Virginia, are you able to unmute?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Virginia.
Hi. Let's see. So, before that Beth said, like I said, it's anything the kids would like to talk about. And
Whoever's there.
yep, who's ever there, we just talk what's on their mind, something that's on my mind. If we're having issues, things are going on in school. It's kind of just their time to talk and see what their thoughts are. And if there's anything that we can change, then we definitely try to do that. I don't know. It's a very, I enjoy doing it. It's very, you know, kind of rewarding and make sure we're doing okay. And I like my staff to get involved too, so that they can say things, you know, so.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. All right, looks like we have a few people that need to hop off, and that's fine. We'll have the recording when we're done. So thank you for that. We're going to move on to the next one, which is strong partnerships, and I'll have Brittany read the indicators to us again.
Okay, the first indicator is frequent and positive family communications occur. So using those drop-off and pickup times as opportunities to converse, regular newsletters, social media, whatever works for your program. Next indicator is having opportunities for family involvement and engagement. So specific family nights or services geared towards families' needs, such as high-set classes or connections to community resources. A community resource list is available to families in need. So whether that's in the form of flyers or a resource board where you can post information, serving as that connector for families. And then families serve as advocates for the program. So you encourage your families to speak up on behalf of your program at school board meetings or other events, and collecting stories from families to share out. The next indicator is that youth are actively involved in the community. So service learning and community service projects get youth out into the community, and then you also do field trips, as some of you have already mentioned today. And then program information is effectively communicated to multiple stakeholders in support of youth development and of the program, and to foster collaboration. So program coordinates an advisory group that brings together community stakeholders, and then program leaders regularly attend school board meetings and other community meetings to share information. And those are the indicators.
Thank you. So again, how they connect to site monitoring, 1C, 4B. Everybody on this call today, if you've ever had a conversation with Vic, you know that he is a huge fan of partnerships. And there's a reason for this, right? Because this helps with our sustainability. It helps to build upon resources existing in your community to grow and develop your youth academic experiences and enrichment experiences. Partnerships have so much potential to have long-term, long-lasting impact on the kids that we work with. And what we're really looking for in terms of that site monitoring is how those relationships are developed and sustained, how they're documented, and then how we can make sure that we're working together for the greater good. So again, you'll see that those are those items that specifically address partnerships. Oops, sorry, let me go back here. I skipped a slide. So we do know that, again, partnerships is something that we do really well when we've been in other states and we talk to them about the 800 plus partners that we have across our state. Other states are, quite frankly, jealous of that, you know, so how can, I guess for this particular question, we want to know if you would drop into the chat, what's one new partnership that you have this year or a partnership that you're particularly happy with? And just go ahead and drop that into the chat if you would, please. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next one. So feel free to include those partners in there. But our last indicator is effective administration. And again, I'll have Brittany read the indicator language for us.
Great. The first one is that plans are created, executed, and reviewed for all aspects of program planning, budgeting, and sustainability by a diverse group of stakeholders. So you have checks and balances to ensure that all of these components are being met, and then you are engaging stakeholders throughout that whole process. The next indicator is that program offerings, policies, and procedures are based on research and/or evidence-based practices and are effectively communicated with a variety of stakeholders. So keeping up to date on current research and then using that to influence your policies and procedures and keep those updated throughout the year and communicating them. The next indicator is that the program is committed to continuous quality improvement. So professional development, keeping up to date on that research and then using it to inform your programming, and then using stakeholders, sharing this information with them so they can help you come up with new ideas for continuous improvement. The next indicator is that adults are adequately oriented to the program before working/volunteering and are also offered ongoing professional development. So basically you have a process in place for orientation and whenever you're bringing outsiders into your program to help you, you're making sure that they're prepared to do so. The next indicator is that appropriate documentation is obtained and kept to ensure health and safety as well as minimize any potential liability. So you keep those youth records retained to ensure confidentiality and privacy, but they're also readily available in case of an emergency, and you're keeping these records updated. The next indicator is that program evaluation is conducted on a regular basis with a variety of stakeholders, and then changes that are made are reflective of the feedback that was given, and those changes are communicated with all stakeholders. So just making sure you have that evaluation in place and you're using data from that evaluation to improve. And then finally, the last indicator here is that program stakeholders are advocates on behalf of the program and youth at large. So you're using your program stakeholders to educate policymakers on the program's purpose and results. And then you're giving that voice to the youth by using stakeholders as advocates and engaging them in community dialogue.
Absolutely, thank you. So you can see there are multiple connections to the site monitoring document for this particular one. Item 2D, the project director and site coordinators communicate regularly with administration to coordinate resources, use of school facilities, and so on and so forth. Christine dropped this in the chat, and this is a great point. When Dick comes to do your comprehensive site visit, he's going to want to meet with your administration. He's going to want to also meet with your partners, your parents, some of the youth, you know, things like people that are generally connected to your program. And we'll make sure that we include the comprehensive site visit document when we upload the materials to the website today too, so that you can see that information. For this particular one, really strong management of your 21st Century Grant is essential if you want to be able to support the overall program, the logistics connected to the program, but then also your sustainability of that program. If your program is not efficiently run or supported by your administration, you're going to struggle with sustainability. So having that effective administration component is vital to that success. So my question for you on this one, and again, feel free to unmute or drop into the chat. How does your administration currently make you feel supported? Is it, is it access? Is it the high levels of communication? Is it resources? How do they support you? And again, feel free to unmute or drop into the chat the ways that your administration is currently supporting you or making you feel supported. And again, administration means different things, right? It could mean school administration. It could also mean your board of directors or whatever structure your community-based organization has. Does anybody want to unmute and share? Okay, we have a comment in the chat. Brian is very lucky because we have great support. And Barb, I would second that. I feel like every time I have a conversation with you, you're kind of touting your administrative support. So, and I think that's probably largely due to the relationships that you've helped develop there too. So. In a previous comment, Billy had shared that they're very happy with the Des Moines Public Schools. And again, it was connected to the fact of being a good community partner, but at the same time, Billy, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think that you probably also have some of that support in how they allow your program access to Edmonds Elementary. If there's anything you want to clarify or expand on with that, please feel free. All right. Any other thoughts? As things come up, please feel free to drop those into the chat. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and I want to talk a little bit about this self-assessment rubric, and I'll share the screen for this in just a moment. So I want you to understand this rubric was designed using those quality standards to become a self-assessment evaluation tool. So it's really designed to have you use in whatever way you feel appropriate as a way for you to determine your areas of strength and areas of improvement. So the best people to implement this tool: site administrators, program managers, site leaders, whoever's a part of your kind of management team that makes the most sense to be the observer and evaluator for this. And in all actuality, it might even be nice to have a couple, 2 or 3 people assess your program, and then you can get together and compare some notes then too. There could also be benefit in having your direct service staff complete the assessment too. It's always interesting to see the program kind of through their lens. And again, because they're in the trenches every day, so to speak, it might provide you some insight that you were not expecting, or it might provide some trend data that might be interesting to you when you think about your program improvement plan. We recommend that you use this tool at the beginning of a fiscal year or school year. And again, I know we're already at the end of October, so we're a little late to the game on this, but think about what timing makes sense to you. That way you'll be able to get a baseline data. And then if you do it annually, perhaps in the spring or after whatever amount of time makes sense for you in your program, then you can kind of see again if you've had some growth areas or if again there's places where you need to do some improvement. Really the purpose behind this assessment then is to incorporate some of those team building aspects to help the site determine what goals you want to work on and to provide the best possible outcome for your youth. Okay, so let me let me pull up the document here for you. So this is a 3-tabbed document. We have our instructions and definitions on the first page. So the instructions essentially is what we just reviewed. The definitions include information on how you would actually do your scoring. So is it not applicable? Is it limited, developing, proficient, or advanced? And again, you'll have this document so you can go ahead and take a look at this. I also am going to skip to the 3rd tab, which is the quality standards. So you have this to be able to reference at any time. But really what we're looking at here is that you as an evaluator or your team, whoever you decide to kind of tap for this particular duty or task, you're going to be looking at if your program promotes and maintains a positive environment. You're going to mark which column you feel is appropriate, but then in the notes column is where you're going to be entering the information in about what it is you observed. My personal, excuse me, my personal suggestion to you would be to start simple with this. Just take some notes. You know, grab a notebook, walk around, take some notes. Try to capture as much language that you hear as possible, and then sit down later and review each of these indicators and determine how you would score it at this point. Some of these are easy. You can make a note about your ratios and if they're appropriate. You can make a note about the safety of an environment. You know, and again, pulling up those indicators and looking here, what does that mean? Does it mean our kids being included? Is diversity included? Are program adults and partners approachable? Are program leaders, do they model safe and supportive environments, or is everybody running with scissors? You know, things of that nature. So what you'll do is you'll be able to go through each of the criteria. So the positive human relationships, the appropriate indoor-outdoor environment, effective programming, strong partnerships, effective administration. And you'll be able to score yourself and get a baseline of data for yourself. So let's see what one of these might look like. So let me grab this. So this is Maria. Okay, so Maria has done an assessment of her site. And just for, again, the sake of time, we're only going to review the positive human relationships component now. So as far as promoting and maintaining a positive environment, Maria felt like what she observed on any particular day was proficient. And she has a note in here that staff greets all youth upon entry into the program. Now, obviously, this is an example. She could go on and include many more examples here. Utilizing positive conflict resolution techniques is the second criteria. For this one, she put limited. And her documentation indicates that staff told youth to get over it without working on solving the actual issue. So that, for her, might be an area where she can incorporate some staff support, some professional development, and so on and so forth. Individualized conversations and interactions occur between adults and youth. She said that she thought this was developing, as staff were seen sitting with youth individually, but some youth never had that option. So again, how can you coach your staff to make sure that every child has a contact with you at some point during that program? Youth needs are identified and provided for by a diverse team of stakeholders that she indicated developing for this one. And her comment was that her ABC site is currently implementing a task force to address the needs of English language learning youth. Because again, perhaps there are some unmet needs there that could be expanded upon. She thought the ratios were appropriate, and you can see on the screen here, she indicated what she thought was appropriate there. And then when we talk about a safe and supportive environment as prioritized and maintained, she thought that was developing because the craft area was messy with scissors being left out. So what Maria can do is she can take her assessment data and she can build that into her annual goals and her staff development plan. So the scenario is that she was the director of ABC after school program. She believes that the organization's strengths are high quality youth programming, parent engagement, and the fact that they provide a full meal to youth and during after school hours or weekend programming. She also recognizes that their space is sometimes an issue. And while they have a dedicated staff, they also deal with the occasional breakdown in communication. So she uses the quality standards self-assessment rubric and spends a couple of afternoons observing her programming and making notes. So then she brings her team together to discuss that. This is just a screenshot of what we just went over with her notes. And then after discussion, the team identified the following ways to improve their program. So while there are no funds to move to a different building, the team determined that they could make better use of their space by rearranging some of the furniture and designating some of those spaces for specific programs like STEM, which sometimes gets messy. So she had a comment in there about the craft area being a little bit messy and scissors being left out and things like that. We all know that STEM can get a little bit messy too, so perhaps they rearrange to be able to have better access to a place for kids to wash up, closer to a sink, closer to better lighting, whatever makes sense is what makes sense there. The team identified that the main reason communication has broken down in the past is because important notices were posted in the break room. However, when youth are in programming, that time goes by way too quickly and not everybody sees those notices. The team agrees that the posted notices will continue, but they'll also make use of an app on their phone to share important information. Additionally, leadership agrees to incorporate monthly team building meetings to improve that communication and morale. That's just an example of how she used this information to be able to build out a plan. So actually, before we move to that slide, again, this is just designed to be a demonstration of how you can use this particular tool. I'm going to pause for a moment to see if anybody has a question about the tool itself or how you would implement it. Okay, so not hearing anything. We're going to move on to what DHS and quality standards look like. And I'm sorry, I do have something in the chat real quick here. Virginia says it looks very helpful. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Brittany to talk about the DHS quality rating system really quickly so that people also have an understanding of this particular system and how it can be used to kind of dovetail with the self-assessment to help you support your program quality.
Great, thanks, Crystal. And so I don't want to spend too much time on this because, you know, we support the DHS quality rating and improvement system, QRIS, but we only know enough to be dangerous, really. So I did want to just bring this up, though, to make sure that you are all aware that DHS has their own quality rating system, and several of the standards and indicators that we've shared in our quality rating system are also, they also appear in the DHS quality rating system. However, there is more of a lean on early childhood with their current QRS system. So that is something to consider when you're looking at their quality rating and improvement system. In the next few months, up to a year, they're not really sure on the timeline. They are going to be updating this QRS system, and there will be a special school age rubric, which is exciting because, like I said, in the past, their rubric has only really applied to early childhood, which has created some barriers for school age programs and after school programs to accessing. So they will have this updated QRS system that they're calling IQ4K. I bring this all up so you can know that you can receive benefits from the state for having a high quality program. So if you're a program that is licensed through DHS and you are accepting child care assistance funds at your program, you can receive more money and reimbursements for child care assistance if you're licensed with DHS and if you improve your quality according to their QRS system. So that is one opportunity if you want to make more money. I know we're talking about sustainability earlier. This is one of the ways that states fund after school through high quality reimbursements for childcare assistance. There are also QRS achievement bonuses through the DHS licensing system. So that means as you move up into their system and move through the ranks, that you'll get bonuses in the form of money for doing that. And then finally, there's the benefit of just having peace of mind for your families. So if you are licensed through DHS and if you are ranked 5, QRS 5 on their system, you can tout that to your families and stakeholders to show that you really are a high quality program that's recognized by the state. Some of this might not be news to you. Some of you might be doing this, but if it is news to you, I'd encourage you to reach out to your local child care resource and referral consultant. They are really the experts on the DHS QRS system and can help you get licensed and access some of these benefits if you're not already doing so. So those links are provided there, and you'll get those when these materials are shared out after the presentation today.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the DHS quality rating system that we might be able to answer? Okay. So as promised, we do want to also be able to provide you with some research or resources that you can access here. And truthfully, I probably should have put the DHS information here too as a link as well. The Iowa After School Alliance is here for you. I hope that you all know all of us well enough by now to know that if you are in need of any type of support, we are here to help you make connections. We're here to brainstorm. Sometimes if you just need a person to talk through a situation with, those are the types of situations or resources that we can provide for you. There's all sorts of resources online to help you with planning, apps to help you reimagine your physical space, team building ideas, youth development ideas. I mean, we could probably put together a multiple page list of those types of apps or websites that could be beneficial. I personally use the Search Institute quite frequently. I am a 40 developmental asset girl. I have been for years and years. So I personally find that they have a lot of really inspiring information and resources at the Search Institute's website, especially when you're looking in that first category of building positive human relationships. Those connections and sparks with kids can be really instrumental. Brittany referenced that the David P. Weichert Center for Youth Program Quality, or the YPQA, or Youth PQA is sometimes how it's referred to, was an inspiration for helping develop some of those quality standards. So we've included that website here as well, that you can go and you can access that. So back in the day, I was a YPQA trainer, and if you have a question about a specific area where you feel like maybe you need a little bit more support, I'm happy to be a resource for you to help you build out a particular area. Training wheels. So if you attended Impact, you'll note that Michelle Cummings, our keynote speaker, has lots of information about engaging different populations, especially virtually during these times. That might be a nice resource for you to access as well. And then I'm going to just open it right now too. If anybody else on the call today has a resource that you use to help with program quality in any way, shape, or form, please drop that into the chat or unmute yourself and share it with us right now. So folks, we're right at 11 o'clock. Our presentation is concluded, but again, we want to know, how can we help? What questions do we have today? And again, feel free to unmute or drop those into the chat. Okay. Well, hearing none, I would like to wish you a good rest of your Tuesday. Hope you found this informative. If there's anything that you need further information on, do not hesitate to reach out to myself, Brittany, or Emily. We'll be happy to start making some connections for you. And again, as soon as we get the video downloaded, we'll get this and all of the supporting documentation uploaded to the website. And I'll be happy to send out a link to let everybody know where all that is when everything is done today. So with that being said, I'm going to stop recording. I can get my, there we go.